My name is Michael Carter. I'm 52 years old, and I proudly served 26 years in the United States Army as a lieutenant colonel overseeing logistics for military medical units. I wasn't the soldier kicking down doors or flying helicopters. My job was making sure the men and women on the front lines always had the medicine, fuel, food, and equipment they needed to come home alive. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered, and I devoted my life to doing it well. My wife Emily always understood that. She stood by me through every deployment, every missed birthday, and every holiday spent overseas. Together we raised two incredible children. Our son, Ryan, had followed me into the Army, while our daughter Sophie became an elementary school teacher. They were the greatest accomplishments of my life. The only person who never respected my service was Emily's mother, Margaret Brooks. To Margaret, I wasn't a real soldier because I wasn't carrying a rifle in combat every day. She loved telling people I had worked behind a desk and hinted that I exaggerated my military career to earn respect. At first, I ignored her comments. Then they became insults. Eventually, they became accusations. After I retired, my health slowly began changing. I became exhausted after climbing stairs. My chest felt tight without warning. Sometimes I became so dizzy I had to grab the nearest wall to stay standing. Margaret laughed every time I mentioned it. "Convenient," she'd say. "You're only sick when someone questions you." Emily defended me, but her mother refused to listen. Then came the lawsuit. Margaret claimed I had manipulated family finances and convinced herself I was pretending to be ill so I could avoid legal responsibility. She demanded money she believed she deserved and insisted the court would expose me as a fraud. I couldn't understand how someone could hate another person so much. My attorney, Linda Harris, warned me the case wasn't really about money. "It's about destroying your credibility," she said. She was right. As the hearing approached, my symptoms became worse. My best friend, retired Army Colonel Karen Mitchell, begged me to see another cardiologist. "You don't look like yourself, Mike." "I'm just stressed." "No," she replied quietly. "I've seen soldiers under stress. This is different." I promised I'd make the appointment, but life kept getting in the way. The courthouse was already crowded on the morning of the hearing. Emily sat beside me instead of her mother, refusing to support the lawsuit. Ryan arrived wearing his Army dress uniform after taking emergency leave. Sophie came straight from school, still carrying her teacher's bag. Seeing all three beside me reminded me that no matter what happened inside that courtroom, I wasn't alone. Margaret walked in without even looking at us. She acted like she'd already won. When testimony began, she confidently took the witness stand. "My son-in-law has spent years pretending to be something he's not," she told the judge. "He wasn't a real soldier, and now he's pretending to be sick." Ryan immediately stood. "That's a lie." The judge ordered him to sit down. Margaret continued, "He always wants attention. Now he's delaying this case by inventing medical problems." I watched Emily wipe away tears. She'd begged her mother not to do this. Margaret ignored her completely. Linda calmly presented my military records, commendations, deployment history, and retirement documents. Every accusation Margaret made was contradicted by official evidence. Still, she refused to back down. When it was my turn to testify, I explained my career and answered every question honestly. Then Margaret suddenly rose from the gallery. "He's faking it," she shouted. The courtroom fell silent. "He's been lying for decades. He wasn't a hero. He's pretending to be sick so everyone feels sorry for him." I opened my mouth to answer. Nothing came out. An unbearable pressure exploded across my chest. I grabbed the witness stand. The room tilted. Someone asked if I was okay, but the words sounded distant. I tried taking another breath. I couldn't. My knees buckled beneath me. As I collapsed, a man from the second row sprinted forward. "I'm a physician," he yelled. He caught me before my head struck the floor. His fingers found my pulse. His face changed instantly. He looked toward the judge. "Call 911. For one terrifying second, nobody moved. Then the judge slammed his hand against the bench. "No!" The courtroom erupted into chaos. Ryan pushed through the crowd. "Gee!" Sophie fell to her knees beside me, tears streaming down her face. Emily grabbed my hand while paramedics rushed inside. The doctor looked directly at Margaret. "This man is not pretending." Those words echoed through the courtroom. For the first time since the lawsuit began, Margaret had nothing to say. I spent the next several days in the cardiac intensive care unit. The doctors confirmed I had suffered a serious cardiac event caused by an undiagnosed heart condition that had been developing for months. Stress hadn't created the illness, but it had pushed my body to its limit. Every symptom had been real. Colonel James Walker, the retired Army physician who saved my life, visited me in the hospital. "You ignored this too long." I started believing everyone else. He nodded. "That happens more often than you'd think." Ryan visited every evening after work. "You taught me never to quit," he said. "Now it's our turn to fight for you." Sophie sat beside my bed reading messages from old soldiers who had served under my command. Dozens remembered how I'd helped bring them home safely. Many said they were alive because logistics had reached them when they needed it most. I cried more than once reading those letters. Emily never left my side. One afternoon, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry I didn't stop my mother sooner." "You tried." "I should have done more." I squeezed her hand. "You stood with me when it mattered." Meanwhile, Linda uncovered the truth. Margaret's lawsuit had never been about justice. She had secretly hoped forcing me into an expensive legal battle would pressure us into handing over part of our retirement savings. She had convinced herself I was weak enough to give in. Instead, the courtroom incident exposed everything. When the hearing resumed weeks later, Ryan testified about my military service. Sophie described watching me struggle to breathe for months while her grandmother mocked my condition. Colonel Walker explained exactly what had happened medically inside that courtroom. The judge dismissed Margaret's claims entirely. He criticized her reckless accusations and ordered her to pay significant legal costs after determining the lawsuit lacked credible evidence. Outside the courthouse, Margaret tried apologizing. Ryan stepped in front of me. "You accused my father of lying about serving his country." Sophie stood beside her brother. "And you called him a faker while he was dying." Neither of them raised their voices. They didn't need to. Margaret lowered her head and walked away alone. Months later, my heart continues healing. Emily and I are still together. Ryan still serves proudly in uniform. Sophie still reminds her students that kindness costs nothing. As for me, I've learned something the Army never could have taught me. The deepest wounds aren't always caused by enemies. Sometimes they're caused by people who refuse to believe your pain. If this story has one lesson, it's this. Never dismiss someone's suffering simply because you can't see it. A few words of compassion may not only save a relationship, they may save a life.